Cory, it's good to see you, and an appropriate moment, I think, at the end of the year now. We know what the tabulated results are in terms of the championship, but your system definitely is something we need to hone in on now. And I noticed straight away that you've now got Max in the statistics in season with a car capable of winning races, but not the championship. That's probably the McLaren guys would probably disagree with that on the basis that he did make it through to the last round. But you're pretty categorical about that.
Yeah, I mean, he had no business coming close to it, especially when he didn't even have a teammate. I mean, he was doing this all alone against a totally dominant team that should have walked away with the championship. And the two drivers he's fighting with in the better team are fighting each other until the last race. That's how dominant their car was, and Verstappen was still there. So, yes, McLaren drivers that look at these statistics would say, no, Cory, that he should be in that category higher. His stat shouldn't be in this season's not capable of winning the championship. But it's true. He shouldn't have had any chance. Really, in this bottom category, it's Senna and it's Verstappen. Those are the two best. Now, Jim Clark doesn't have really seasons in this, but that's the problem with not many races back in the old days. It's hard to do some of these categories. But certainly, yeah, in a car that's pretty good, can win races, probably not win the championship. You know, most people always think, me included, that that's what Senna was a legend for. And the statistics bear that out. But Verstappen, in this first category, is already pretty much right there with Senna. Winning percentages basically the same. He's the best all time in podium, which we see. Verstappen seems to be always on the podium, no matter what season it is. Poles he's behind. Senna, we all know, is the best at that. But fastest laps is the same. So he's right there. Hamilton kind of fails in this category, as you can see. So now, if you go into that next category, seasons with arguably the best car, certainly capable of winning races and championships, but not a totally dominant car. So for Verstappen, this is 2021, 2022, and 2024. Of course, that 2023 car, that's in the top category of totally dominant car. But in this category, if you look at Verstappen, he's got of the best stats with Fangio. It's kind of, so now in this category, he's with Fangio, and you could say Jim Clark too. Those are really the three best. And we have a lot of data in this category for all drivers, so you get a good idea. So when you're separating these, yeah, you can start comparing Verstappen in this category to Jim Clark and Manuel Fangio. And once again, for Hamilton fans, not a great category again for him here.
I don't see any Lando Norris in any of these at the moment.
No, yeah, well, we're just looking at the greatest of all time. I don't think Lando gets a sniff at some of the greatest drivers of all time yet. Now, let's wait another 3-4 years, but right now, I don't think we have to do his data yet.
Yeah, well, and just to repeat, I mean, the great thing about all these stats is how you are embracing all the eras, and it's such a difficult thing to do given the changes in the point system, given the number of races per year then compared with now. And obviously there's a safety factor, a reliability factor, and you're kind of computing all of that in, right? When we're looking at these statistics.
Yeah.
And make it an even playing field.
And of course, with my data, I'm always trying to take out bad luck anywhere where I can. And for Lando and McLaren fans, this is something you can feel comfortable about, and Max fans can feel comfortable about. In my data, Lando this year won by 2 weekends worth of points. So he should have won the title. In the same way that in 2008, Hamilton did win the title, even in my data too. So where Hamilton, I always talk about this, where Hamilton fans should be angry is not at 2021. Max easily won the title in 2021. 2016 is close. I still have Rosberg, but in 2007 is the championship where Lewis Hamilton fans should be furious. That's the one he really should have won. Which I even have here with 2007 title.
And just to be clear about what you mean by luck, do you call Lando's retirement in Zandvoort bad luck? Is that
yes?
What you're talking about there?
He should have finished second in that race, and he does in my data.
And is that what makes you say he should have won it by 2 weekends?
Yeah, he you don't have to go into how I do it, but it's basically 2 weekends worth of points. So it really wasn't that close. And actually, even Piastri got second. So it's funny how many times in seasons where you think, oh, the other person should have won, even the way I do it, it usually ends up coming out the way it did in real life.
Mm.
which is kind of neat. But another example for Senna fans. In my data, he wins Monaco 1984 because Prost is whining, "Oh no, shut down the race! It's too dangerous." Senna was going
Yeah.
to win that another lap or two. So, so there's another one. On section one, seasons in a totally dominant car. This is where Lewis Hamilton fans really have to pay attention because you notice everyone has 2 or 1 seasons in a totally dominant car. Hamilton has had 5. So when you look at, well, he has 100 wins, 100 poles, 200 podiums, 7 plus championships. You could say he won 10 championships. Okay, he's had far more seasons and far more races in a totally dominant car. So now when you break this down into the percentages of races that all these guys have had in dominant cars, you see who comes out on top is once again Jim Clark, Alberto Ascari, and Max Verstappen are the 3 best in this category.
Mm.
And people forget Ascari too much. In the 14 races, he had a totally dominant car. He won 12 of them. He had 8 hat tricks, 6 Grand Slams, and 3 what I call perfect races, where you get pole, fastest lap, win, and win by 2 minutes or more. And he had 3 of those in those 14 races. I mean, he was so dominant in 52 and 53. But yeah, Clark, Ascari, and Verstappen are tops here, which means, Peter, that Verstappen is of the best in all 3 categories. He's certainly of the best in all 3.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough data for Clark in that bottom category, but it's just by looking at this overall at 36,000 feet, you go, wow, he is absolutely in the discussion with the Fangios, the Sennas, the Ascaris already. If he quit tomorrow, he's already right there just by what he's done in his career. And I have that little spot at the bottom of the top category for people that don't like Max and say, oh, well, how could you put his 2022 stats in that middle category? That was a totally dominant car. Well, even if you do, it still comes out pretty much almost as good anyway. Right. I don't think the 2022 car was totally dominant. Leclerc, who's certainly not the driver Max is, had, I think, more poles than Max in 2022. So the Ferrari was quite fast. He just kind of failed. In the same way Vettel failed in 2018 when he had the car to compete with Hamilton. He failed as a driver.
Yeah.
So either way, Max is right there.
Just going back to Ascari, the one thing we need to think about there, thinking about 52, 53, is the quality of the opposition. I know having a totally dominant car is one way of describing it, but sometimes it's because the opposition is absolutely mediocre, and therefore he's always going to win, even in a average car almost. And that was kind of the case in 52, 53, because it was a weird thing where Formula One went to the Formula 2 regulations at the encouragement of Enzo Ferrari, who just happened to have a really quick Formula 2 car at the time and nobody else did. That Ferrari in 52, 53 was more than totally dominant. It was the only car, in effect. I'm not trying to decry the achievement of Alberto Ascari, and we should always remember that Dennis Jenkinson, the doyen of all motoring journalists, once said that, in his opinion, Ascari was quicker than Fangio. So we shouldn't forget that. But it's an important point, I think, to remember that the opposition for Ascari in 52, 53 was almost negligible.
And Fangio went away from the sport and then came back. And then when he came back, he was dominant. And nobody can forget, really Fangio, he wins the 1950 title in my stats. So in the 7 seasons Fangio competed, he won 6 titles, which is, and with 4 different teams. So if anybody wants to say Fangio is the greatest of all time, I am not going to argue that, because there's enough there. His percentages of wins, percentages of podiums, percentages of poles blows everybody away. And he started, of course, when he was older. So yeah, it's hard to completely pick because you're going across eras, but you're trying to figure out why do I feel with the eye test? To me, that's the definition of sports. It's the battle between the statistics and the eye test. Why is it when everyone saw Senna, they're like, I don't care about the stats. This guy is all-time special. Why do people today look at Verstappen and say, even years ago, I thought in 2015 in his rookie season, I said, this guy is one of the greatest of all time. That was 10 years ago. You can just see it. And the statistics overall, they also bear that out if you go into detail. But that's kind of the fun, the eye test versus the statistics. The fun one for me and you is always Jim Clark. His statistics are kind of blah.
Well, that's why I love doing these, because Jim Clark looks so good in all your stats, Cory. But one thing I would question maybe is Michael. I'm intrigued as to why you only have Michael with 2 years with the most dominant car, because he was effectively exclusively on Bridgestones at Ferrari. from what 2001 onwards, which gave him a massive advantage. Massive advantage. He engineered it himself with Ross Brawn, but I'm surprised you only have 2 years there where he had the dominant car, totally dominant car.
Well, the only one you could say would be dominant would be 2001, but even that went to the end of the season. I mean, in 2002 and 2004, I mean, every weekend it was pretty much, okay, is it going to be Schumacher and Barrichello winning by 30 seconds or Schumacher and Barrichello winning by a minute? Um, '01 wasn't like that. '03 went right down to the end, of course.
Let's just talk about Jim Clark then versus Max Verstappen. Over these three different categories, who is ahead at the moment?
Well, the thing about, I mean, you can speak to this far more than I can because you know the era better. But the thing for Verstappen fans, if they want to see, is there a path for him to become the greatest of all time? To me, the greatest driver of all time was Jim Clark. The greatest racer of all time is Ayrton Senna. I kind of separate them because in terms of passing, blocking, aggressiveness, you're in 20th place. You have 20 laps to get to first. Who do you put your life in? I'm giving it to Senna, not Clark. But if you have an hour and a half, 2 hour race or longer, a Le Mans race, I'd rather have Jim Clark. They're kind of different drivers in what their top skill is. The thing with Max is he started off as a Senna, very aggressive, best passer, best blocker, pissing everyone off at how aggressive he was. Now, in the past 5 years, 2021 on, we've seen him become incredible at tire management and being smooth and having Jim Clark and Prost qualities. So it's like he's kind of gone this path now where he has both Senna's skill set and starting to have Clark's skill set. Where, to me, those are probably the two best drivers we've ever seen. Again, driver, racer. And he kind of has qualities of both. And you see it when it's needed. When he starts in 15th place, you see the Senna come out. When he's starting, like in the last race, Abu Dhabi, he's like, oh, let me just drive as slow as I can and still win the race. Or tire management, 2021 U.S. Grand Prix, where he held off Hamilton coming on the new tires. He has both those qualities, and that's incredible to see.
Yeah, it is. And I would add one of those as well. I think the Max that a lot of people saw at the beginning of his career would assume that if he was in a difficult situation, starting from the back of the grid, mid-pack for whatever reason, he would be the guy that would sort of aggressively charge through at the first corner and inevitably damage a front wing end plate or take somebody out or get involved in somebody's accident. And yet, time and again now, recently, we've seen Max starting in those vulnerable positions, Austria aside, and getting away with it and actually doing an incredibly good job and picking up places on that first corner, which is such a vulnerable, fragile part of the race. Yeah, of course, Austria was different, but that really wasn't his fault, other than that he shouldn't have been in that part of the grid at all. He didn't belong there. And if you are qualifying there, even if you're being super careful, how can you stop somebody T-boning you the way Kimi did?
And don't forget, in the 2022, you had that 4-race stretch where he started the Hungarian Grand Prix in 10th, won the race. Started the Spa in 13th, won the race. That was where Alonso said, I'll have the lead by lap 11, and I think he did by 12. The Dutch Grand Prix, which he started on pole and won, and then the next race he started 7th Italian Grand Prix and won the race. 4 races in a row, where 3 of them he comes from further back and gets the lead with no problems, no issues, no crashes. And this is even as a Senna fan. I have to admit, when you really study his career, he did make a lot of mistakes. And Max only made a lot of mistakes some in the beginning. We haven't seen that. He's just fine-tuned it.
Yeah. Just going back to Senna versus Clark and their racecraft. Yeah, I'm not sure you're right there, Cory, because think about the twice at the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, Jimmy had problems on the line and had to scythe through the field and did so without any problem at all. And within 2 laps was always at the front of the race. The other point is the Italian Grand Prix, 67. If you want to see Jim Clark, the racer, think about him leading that race in the Lotus 49, getting a puncture, losing a lap.
Coming all the way back.
And then coming all the way back to lead the race again and then run out of fuel because he had been therefore using more fuel in order to drive like that and ran out of fuel on the penultimate lap. I mean, Jimmy, yeah, he was a racer right up there with Senna, in my opinion. I just had to say that. You probably predicted that I would say that.
I mean, obviously, Everybody we're talking about is of the highest level. I'm saying if you nitpick the highest level.
Yeah.
But certainly statistically, Jim Clark, no matter what I do, no matter what systems I try, he just always seems to come out on top. And this is what younger and new fans that just look at the statistics. Oh, Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton does have the most perfect career, I think, in sports history. 100 poles, 100 wins, 200 podiums, 7+ championships. I mean, it's perfect.
It's almost as if you're saying he should stop there and draw a line, right?
I know, but there's more to it. He's had far more races in a totally dominant car than anybody in history. And he's had 5 seasons with a car that he couldn't lose the championship, and he still lost in 2016 to Rosberg, although, yes, Malaysian Grand Prix, his engine blows. But overall, that season, Rosberg's good. He's not amazing. He's not Prost. You know, it's not like he had to fight some legendary driver to win that title. No.
It's interesting. Jackie Stewart doesn't appear in any of those stats, does he? Because I would say, I mean, I know it's just one, but I would say his championship win in '73 was definitely not in a championship winning car. And that was a great championship win for Jackie. And then, of course, the other thing, like Jimmy and all these other drivers, you got to remember how few races they actually started compared with, say, Lewis. You know, how many races has Lewis started now? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, 350, I think. Yeah.
Jackie did 99, Jimmy 62 or 63, I think. I mean,
Right.
Fangio less than that. You know, that's a stat too that I think you've computed into these numbers, correct?
Well, it's a positive and a negative. It's a positive. Look at all the wins I've got. But remember, the more races you race, the more it hurts your percentages and stuff. I mean, you can see this with Hamilton, how many races he's had, and now he keeps racing. And this year, you know, it would have been great if he pulled off a win and a couple of podiums. He pulls off nothing, and Leclerc gets what, 7 podiums this year or something, and it
Yeah.
looks really bad for and Hamilton just doesn't fare well in any of these categories.
Yeah, but there's a subtle factor there, which is not necessarily the number of races you do. It's the number of races in a season, and the opportunity that
Yeah.
the opportunities you have therefore to score. Fangio, Clark, Stewart, all those drivers had much fewer opportunities to do well. If you also throw in how dangerous it was as well,
Yes.
which is another factor. And so that actually colors everything very differently as well. If you put in the danger and you put in drivers like Lewis, let's not say Max at the moment, but Lewis, Prost, onto circuits of the type that Fangio, Ascari, Jim Clark raced on, and would they have been the same race drivers anyway?
I mean, when you think you could die at every corner because
Well,
of cow or fence or something, you know,
yeah, and sadly, it's no joking matter. I mean, Fangio, when you think about how upset he was when Onofre Marimar, who was a protege of his, was killed in practice at the Nürburgring at the German Grand Prix, you know, that how many drivers today have to go through that sort of thing? And that was just a relatively small thing, really, because it didn't actually involve Fangio. But that happened all the time. It happens so regularly, and that had to be a factor as well. And how they actually drove the cars in order not to have accidents as well, and the very fine edge they had to find. Cory, thanks so much, buddy. Take care.
very good.